In this nugget, we are going to explore the character Sherlock Holmes from the novella The Sign of the Four by Arthur Conan Doyle. We are going to begin with a timeline of the events concerning Sherlock Holmes. In Chapter 1, Holmes complains of his boredom and demonstrates his powers of observation and deduction to Watson. In Chapter 2, Holmes is immediately re-energised when Miss Morstan arrives and explains the mystery. Holmes has a new case to solve. In Chapter 6, Holmes investigates the death of Bartholomew Sholto and the crime scene. He names Jonathan Small as the main suspect. In Chapter 7, Holmes and Watson use Toby the dog to follow a trail that eventually leads to a boatyard. Holmes learns Small has hired the Aurora in order to escape. In Chapter 9, Holmes disguises himself as an old man in order to investigate the case. In Chapter 10, Holmes, Watson and Jones chase Small down the Thames, eventually capturing him and retrieving the treasure chest. In Chapter 12, Holmes listens to Small confess and tell his version of the events. So, who is Sherlock Holmes? Sherlock Holmes is the protagonist in the novella. A protagonist is the main character, often portrayed as the hero. He is an unofficial consulting detective with an excellent track record of solving impossible cases where others, including the police force, have failed. Holmes lodges in 221B Baker Street with John Watson. From here, he meets clients and accepts new cases, such as the mystery of the Agra treasure, the case Miss Mary Morstan brings to him. Watson, the narrator, describes Holmes's great powers, his masterly manner, and the experience which I had had of his many extraordinary qualities. The word masterly means showing great skill, and the word extraordinary means remarkable and out of the ordinary. Holmes is an outstanding detective. His detective skills are unparalleled by any other character in the novella. The word unparalleled means unmatched or incomparable. Holmes uses the science of deduction and modern forensic investigative methods to solve difficult cases. The word forensic means using scientific methods to help solve crime. Holmes's powers of observation and deduction allow him to quickly and correctly identify Jonathan Small and Tonga as suspects. In contrast, the official police force, represented in the novella by Athelney Jones, make mistakes and arrest innocent individuals. Holmes drives the narrative by observing, finding evidence, and making deductions. Without him, both the case and the narrative would not progress. Holmes says, "I am the last and highest court of appeal in detection." This means that nobody is better than Holmes. Holmes is a man of science. He uses forensic and scientific methods to solve the mystery. These methods were not yet in use by the police force, demonstrating that Holmes has advanced scientific knowledge well beyond others in the novella. Forensic investigation was a new concept in the late 19th century. Much of Holmes's research and work would have been groundbreaking, or in other words, brand new. A Victorian reader would have greatly admired Holmes's brilliance, especially in comparison to the police force's relatively primitive, or basic, methods of investigation. Holmes has written several monographs on scientific topics, including on types of tobacco ash. This arguably obsessive attention to detail demonstrates how determined Holmes is to make progress. Holmes is openly critical of people, such as Athelney Jones, who rely on guesswork instead of science, reasoning, and logic. Holmes feels his scientific methods are far superior. Holmes is a man of two halves. Throughout the narrative, Holmes's mood constantly shifts between excitement and humour to absolute apathy and depression. The word apathy means to have a lack of interest. His mood is solely dependent on whether he is making progress with a case or not. This extreme contrast in behaviour highlights the duality of his personality. The word duality means having two opposing sides to a character. Holmes says, "I abhor the dull routine of existence. I crave for mental exaltation." The word crave means to have a powerful desire, and the phrase mental exaltation means extremely challenging brain work. Holmes is also a logical man. He is outspoken in his preference for logic and reason over emotions. He also solves his cases based on observations and logical deductions. Holmes says that emotional qualities are antagonistic to clear reasoning. The word antagonistic means to be in opposition to something. This obsession with logic sometimes makes Holmes seem harsh and insensitive towards others. For example, he is critical of Watson's engagement to Miss Morstan, saying he cannot congratulate Watson. Watson declares that Holmes is like an automaton, meaning he is like a heartless machine. Paradoxically, Arthur Conan Doyle deliberately chooses to give Holmes these inhuman qualities, or his flaws, such as his insensitivity, in order to make Holmes a more realistic and human character. Holmes is an expert, but he is also arrogant. He is not a modest character and is very outspoken about his skill and superiority in the field of detection. He believes he is unique and as a result is often very dismissive of other detectives' work. Despite their close friendship, Holmes is also very condescending towards Watson, using patronising terms such as boy when addressing him. The word condescending means to talk down to somebody and assume that they are less intelligent. Holmes uses very sophisticated and technical language, which is likely beyond the understanding of most Victorian readers. This both highlights his genius level of intelligence, but also distances Holmes from the reader, making him seem all the more impressive and mysterious. Despite this display of arrogance, Holmes is not interested in public credit for his work, instead offering the credit for the mystery to Athelney Jones. It is clear that Holmes solves cases purely for his own enjoyment.